everyone. I'm going to admit the people in now. It's 1 o'clock.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Great. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fall. Well, people are coming in. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fall 2025 virtual meeting for ACRL National Library Marketing and Outreach Discussion Group for Greater New York City. I'm just letting people into the Zoom room. We have 88 people who have registered. Obviously, 88 people are not going to come, but we suspect that we're going to have a bunch of people. So thank you so much for taking the time to come to this meeting about micro and mini assessments for market research. I'm Mark Aaron Polgar, and my co-chair is Jessica Keebler, and we're going to do some repeat intros before we start shortly. I'm just letting people into the Zoom room. Sorry.
Yeah, we can give a minute or two for everybody to
Okay.
get in.
You don't have to be in Greater New York City area to join. This is one of the local groups for ACRL New York Library Marketing and Outreach Discussion. They're all over the country because we're representing ACRL nationally, but you don't have to work in New York City or in New York State. Okay. So this meeting is only going to be an hour, which is okay because then, if it's 2 hours, you might fall asleep and get bored. An hour and a half might be too long. An hour is just perfect. And Jessica and I are going to be giving examples of how our libraries use micro and mini assessments when conducting market research to glean data from our students when we are making our marketing decisions. So it is 1:02. We're going to wait like one more minute. Is that okay, Jessica?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and then we'll open it up to everyone afterwards too.
And I'm an outreach librarian at the College of Staten Island, part of the CUNY system in New York City. And Jessica?
I'm at Pace University. I'm actually at the Pleasantville, Westchester campus, but we do have one in Lower Manhattan as well.
So we have 21 people in total, 19 attendees and 2 of us. I guess we're going to, do you want to get started?
Yeah, I think this sounds good.
Okay, great. So I'm actually going to let Jessica go first. She's going to give some examples of how her library uses micro and mini assessments when conducting market research for library marketing purposes. And then I'll give some examples, and then we'll have some time to do Q&A. And this meeting is recorded, but not the Q&A. So if you're not comfortable, you can turn your videos off, but the presentation portion of this meeting will be recorded on a private YouTube channel, which we posted to our blog. Okay, so Jessica, please go ahead.
All right, sounds good. So let me make sure everyone can see my slides. Ooh, okay, can everyone see that? Looks good. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's loading. Give it a second. Okay, there we go. So I really these are very not polished slides, but I just wanted to throw together the concept so we could talk about it. So I'm really going to talk about one instance over the last semester or two where we started this process of using sort of micro assessments, and I don't even want to call it market research because I feel like it's not even that official, but we'll get to that. But really, this whole process started with focus groups. We did do, we had almost 2 years of planning these focus groups, and then we spent a semester running them, and then a semester analyzing the data. And we really weren't happy with the data that we got from the focus groups. I think partially because we got majority students who already use the library, and we just got a lot of information that was confirmation of what we knew already, that students weren't using the library to the best of what we had to offer. They were unaware of the depth of what we offered. So we are starting marketing campaigns to sort of promote what we think students are unaware of. So it was helpful in that way to target a little more of our marketing campaigns. But my director really wanted to see if we could, rather than doing this whole big focus group thing again, sort of just find many ways to unintrusively get information from our students. So she realized we had this thing called a happy or not machine, and she'd had it for like a couple of years and we'd never used it. And so she wanted to sort of use it for these little mini assessments. So her plan was to put these out every 2 weeks throughout the semester, put a new question out, get the data back from the students, and then to also create sort of a feedback loop back to the students so that we would report back to them in the form of like infographics in the space where the Happy or Not machine was, on social media, maybe even through emails. We haven't done that yet, but just to sort of let them know, hey, this is what you told us, this is how you and your fellow students are feeling. And then if we actually make a change based on their answers, to also report back on those changes. And then we also did two things in addition to the machine. This example doesn't actually have the QR code on it, but the other questions had a QR code that students could scan to give us more information, more feedback on like a LibWizard form. So we also had, and I'll show you the questions in a second, but we had a question asking them about how they felt about these new solo pods that we had purchased. And there was a QR code in there because we figured if students were really unhappy with something, they could tell us in this LibWizard form, because the machine doesn't give them the opportunity to do that. And during each 2-week period, I also had 2 days where I posted the question on our Instagram in our stories, where students could also answer the question. So is there a possibility there was duplication where maybe a student hit the button on the Happy or Not machine and did it on Instagram? It's possible, but we just kept that in mind with our data analysis. And then we created this sort of folder structure in our OneDrive that we all use so that we could collect all the Happy or Not feedback with every week's question and the report back from the Happy or Not machine and LibWizard. So we created a little way to organize ourselves. And so these are the questions that we asked. First was, how confident do you feel moving around the library and finding information? We wanted to know, like, the first 2 weeks of the semester, especially for, we couldn't really differentiate the students out from their answers, but, when you have new students around, was there this overwhelming feeling that the library wasn't easy to use, right? Then we asked them about these solo pods that we have. And I didn't include a picture, but does everyone know what those are? They're like those Zoom pods that they're these little isolated cubicles that you can sit in. They're soundproof. You can put your laptop in there. So we purchased those based on some focus group data that students needed a place to do Zoom calls and interviews. So we wanted to know, since these were new things for the fall semester, how did they feel about them? What did you do in the library today? So we wanted to understand how students are using the space. And then that last question is this one: how is the semester going for you? We kind of wanted to just get a vibe off of them. This was one of the ones that really didn't have any, actionable things that we could do from it. It was more to just get a sense of how students were doing. And this is what it looked like gathering the data on Instagram. So for the solo pods, we asked, what did you like the most? Was it the quiet, the lighting options, that they were just exactly what you needed for Zoom, that they were comfortable, because they do have like adjustable seats and tables and all that stuff in there. So this is what we put on Instagram. And I did link to the LibWizard form for anyone who wanted to give us extra information. So then, this information, all the data from this was combined with the information from the Happy or Not machine to, kind of put together student feelings about all of these 4 individual questions. And then we were able to put together like an infographic reporting back to students on their responses. So again, this becomes a form of marketing. So, hey, this is what students loved about these solo pods, but also, closing the loop on communication with us. Like, we asked you this question and this is what students said back. So we want to try to do that for as many of the questions as possible going forward, because I think we're going to keep doing it, maybe not every 2 weeks, but when we have something that we know we want to ask from them. And this is actually going to be the next iteration of things. Our IT person is really savvy. So he is building us an app on an iPad that he is going to put out. Happy or Not sells one. This is their option where it says feedback in the green. Those buttons become digital, and students can, or people can, tap whatever they feel, happy or not. And then if they want to provide more feedback, there's an actual keyboard there, which is different from the more analog one that we currently have. But So hopefully next semester, we're going to be able to maybe get some more valuable feedback in the moment rather than trying to use that LibWizard form, which at the end of the day, nobody used for all 4 of those questions that we had. So that is sort of the micro assessments that we're doing using this Happy or Not machine. And we also still use, this has been maybe 3 years now, we've been doing whiteboard engagement. And I know a lot of libraries do this, but we do try to use them in more targeted ways than some libraries. I think sometimes they'll just put up a whiteboard and let students go wild and play, write what they want. But we use it to promote our events, promote new services. We just got a whole collection of borrowable items for executive functioning studying, like visual timers and laptop desks and stuff like that. So we promoted those services with a whiteboard. Sometimes we will ask for feedback. What events would you attend? And then sometimes it's just polls and questions to, make them laugh and make them feel like they're engaging with the library. So those are the only 2 that I'm going to present today. I just wanted to put those out there, and then I'm going to pass it over to Mark. Does anyone have any quick questions about that, for now? And then we can talk more about it after Mark speaks.
I love those ideas.
Thanks.
Love those ideas. They're wonderful ideas.
Thanks. All right. Well, then I'll pass it over to you.
Does anyone have any questions for Jessica before I talk about my less exciting types of mini and micro assessments? Any questions for Jessica?
And I'll share those slides with Mark so he can share them if you want. Like I said,
Hi.
Nothing professional. Hi. Yeah. Amy?
I have a quick question. The QR codes on the whiteboards, what do they direct to?
Oh, good question. So at the top of the whiteboard, there's a QR code so they can submit their own question ideas.
That's fun. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Good question.
Jessica, I did have a question for you as well. In terms of the placement of where you're actually putting the whiteboards and the happy or not happy machine, where are you placing that for it to get the most engagement, and what would you recommend?
Right, good question. Yeah, the weekly whiteboard goes right in the lobby so that students see it as soon as they walk in, especially for first years who might not, know where to find it. There are students who always look for it as soon as they walk in, and they immediately grab a marker before they even know what the question is, because it's become like a habit for them. So that's right in the lobby when you first walk in. The Happy or Not machine has been placed wherever is most related to the question. So the solo pod question that was posted right in front of the pods, with the one that was what was the exactly wording of the question? Hold on, which one was that? About like, what did you do today in the library? Yeah, if it was what did you do today in the library, we had that right by the entrance. And the how is your semester going is like over by the stairs, because people are constantly going up and down the stairs. So yeah, it's sort of based on what the content of the question is.
Awesome. And then just one more quick question. So I actually work at a hospital library, and we have like a small little marketing committee. So I would say, but we're very, very busy. So I would say, how long does it take you to aggregate all of the data? Are you working solo? Are you working with a team? Kind of what are some of the limitations to kind of doing some of these micro assessments or challenges that you experience that if we decide to implement them here, we can kind of keep them on our radar?
I think they're actually super easy, especially if you create a schedule of the questions and when you're going to gather the data and put it together. I am working on like a team of 4. It's myself, my director, our head of reference, and our IT person. So our IT person is in charge of pulling the data from the Happy or Not machine, which I think is super easy. I think he plugs it into a USB thing connected to his computer, and it downloads an Excel file, which is sort of the same thing that the LibWizard form can do. It just, you download an Excel file, and then it's just putting those into a folder and then reviewing the data. I guess there would be a little math. Oh, and I guess the Instagram too. So depending on how many places you're doing the assessments, that does increase the amount of effort involved. Instagram is super easy too, because I think you just I went into insights and screenshotted the numbers. So I think the hardest part is the math. It's just combining all the responses from the different places you might be pulling assessments from.
Thank you.
No problem.
Are there more questions for Jessica? We love questions.
Yeah, and I guess the other, time intensive part, it would be if you're going to complete that feedback loop is what are you going to present as your your findings. Like putting together that Canva infographic is super easy for me because I'm great in Canva, but my director can't stand Canva because she thinks it's hard to use. So putting that together to close that feedback loop, if you decide to do that, could be a little time consuming too.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. I definitely will be using your ideas, of course, and taking them to my chief librarian and asking to experiment. I love the whiteboards. It's super easy because like
Yeah.
a lot of us already have those.
And honestly, I don't use ChatGPT for a lot of things, but ChatGPT is a great place to get ideas for questions. Like I've been doing this for 4 years now, almost every week. And sometimes I just get like a brain block of like, what do I ask these students? And so ChatGPT has been easy to just plug in and say, okay, I'm a college librarian. It's the winter, it's finals. What can I ask them about that? Right. And then it'll spit out some questions. So just throwing that out there too.
Okay. I think it seems like I'll just naturally start.
Cool.
I'm going to be showing you some examples of some of the mini and micro assessments that I use at my campus. And I have some notes just to talk a little bit how I approach kind of assessing our students and faculty in a more of a micro and mini way, and how I use that for both user experience, design and research, as well as market research. So I'm going to give the example of specifically A/B testing. A/B testing, which is often a user experience design type of research methodology, which we've used for our science. A/B testing is automatically micro, and I'll give you the example that when we went through a signage replacement project in 2012, and when we constantly replace our signs, we often show them the before and after. So if you want to do a very quick assessment of something like a sign, just give an example of a sign, A/B testing would be showing your users 2 different iterations of the same sign. And one would be the before and one would be the after, and asking students to say like, oh, in this case, students, we've also done assessment with other faculty and also other staff at the college. But asking them to see which iteration they prefer is another form of a micro assessment, because it's immediate and giving you the practical example of showing them our before sign and after sign. We did a huge signage replacement project, and those are just some examples of where you show them this before and after, and it's like it's instant. You get that instant data. It's like, oh, which design or which branding or which logo do they prefer? That's one example. I also want to talk about another example of using micro assessments in library events. So we use both formative and summative assessment by doing one question. So for an example, we have monthly movies. And at the beginning of the film, we want to kind of introduce the film, but we want to ask them just one question. How did you learn about this film? What type of promotional channels did you access to get that information? So we want to know, number one, this is before the film begins, did they learn about this information through the website, through social media, through printed promotions, through digital promotions? What communication channel did they actually learn about this? And that would be one example of asking one question, which is, again, formative assessment at the very beginning of an event, just to get an idea of how they learned about this event. And then summative assessment. At the end of the event, we have a feedback form with 3 questions. And what we want to know is, and it's anonymous. We want to know, what year of study are they coming from, and what films would they like to see in the future? And that kind of drives our decisions. So again, summative assessment at the end of an event, and you can apply this in instruction, you can apply this in anything. And that's an example of just, literally giving one question at the beginning, one question at the end. And that's very similar, like the pre-test, post-test for those of you who are instruction librarians or kind of engaged in doing, information literacy instruction. Often the pre-test and post-test is a great example of formative and summative assessment. And what really helps with market research is when we ask those questions, we kind of learn like, oh, how many students in this event learned about this event through what type of promotion? And then at the end of that library event, we actually learn what types of movies or films do they want us to present. And we have our own theater in the library. And, we kind of learn what they want to see in the future. So in that feedback form, we are kind of soliciting, again, their level of study, what their major is. And we try to limit the assessment at the end to, let's say, between 1 to 3 questions at the very end. And most importantly, we want to know what kinds of films do they want to see in the future. So that's one example. I don't have the, it's literally, I'm going to just mention, all of our assessments are on printed, because I'm old fashioned that way, printed postcards. So everything, we upload the data digitally to Microsoft Forms, but we print out these assessments, and I know we're using paper and that's bad, but we use them on postcards, right? Because we get the data immediately. Instead of giving them a QR code, I'm not against QR codes, I think they're wonderful. And instead of giving them a URL to an online questionnaire, having it done in print on small postcard 5x8 pieces of paper, we get the actual data captured immediately, and then we have a college assistant that uploads it. So that's one example of the formative versus summative assessment of library events that we do for market research. Okay, and please interrupt me if there's any questions.
Quick question.
Sure, I love questions.
For that first question, I think you answered it, but I want to double check. That first question that you asked about how they found out about the event, you give them a postcard? Like practically, how do you ask that question separately?
So that one's verbal, and I take notes.
Verbal. Okay.
Yeah. No, so I mean, like I like to do different kinds of assessments. So whether it's like verbally and writing, and again, like the formative is like, it's more informal. Gotcha. And the summative, the way that I'm interpreting summative is like more formal. But yes, so I want to get an idea of, and I'm sorry if I'm yelling, is like how students learned about this event. Because at my campus, here's the problem about my campus. I'm one of the 26 campuses in the CUNY system. And when we have club hours are times of the day during the week, Tuesday and Thursday from 2:30 to 4:30, when there's no classes. We have competing events. So sometimes when we have an event, like no one shows up and I feel like completely deflated, and I feel like I'm like, it's like a rejection, it's like, why didn't you come to the library? So I feel like really horrible, but I also understand that there are other competing events on campus, and there are so many different ways that students can learn about those events. So for example, like we have big social media, not just in the library, we have social media through the college website, right? So the college presence, they have their own social media. And oftentimes there are things that are co-branded with CUNY, because our campus could have events that are co-branded and kind of co-sponsored with the larger university. But I want to know, like, did they access this information through printed means, through the website, through like a digital slide, through social media? So Jessica, hopefully I'm answering your question. I verbally ask, and then I go on my phone and I kind of like take notes to see like, oh, how did students learn that? I just think I think students and faculty are kind of exhausted from filling out forms and papers, and so I'm trying to make things like as instant and immediate as possible. And because I know there's a lot of like kind of labor involved in like completing like long assessment, especially if they're like 25 questions. So hopefully I answered your question, Jessica.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are there any other questions about like that example of like using formative and summative assessment for library events? Because if not, I'll move on to my other example. So we often do like ethnographic research in the form of observations. So we do unobtrusive observations, and so that is not participant observation, but it's using again like unobtrusive observation. So in the micro and mini way, I just want to talk. When we design wayfinding signage, we want to see how users navigate through the building, and we want to kind of like informally observe them, but not in a creepy way, obviously. But we want to look at it like this. So our library is 3 floors. There's one main entrance. And when users come to the rotunda, they have options about making different decisions, right? So, I'll give an example. Decision 1 from the rotunda to the elevator, right? So that's one node or that's one piece. And we want to see like, which users, go to the elevator, go, left up the staircase or right towards the IT help desk. So as an example, when they get to the rotunda, there's at least 4 different decisions, right? And that is called either a decision point or a node, NODE, or a bump point, BUMP, where a wayfinding sign should be that would kind of inform a user at the point where the user is making a decision. So those specific pieces of the user's journey, right? When they go to the elevator, when they go up to the stairs, they go to the bottom of the stairs, they go up the stairs. Those are often ways where we can create wayfinding signage, promotional signage, policy signage, identification signage sometimes. So I think that these unobtrusive micro observations where some library staff members are observing only specific parts where the user is going from a specific point in the library to another point, right? And where they make that decision, and kind of like taking account to seeing, just like where they're going. And I think that by taking notes and understanding the various possibilities, and again, I do this in a I sit at the reference desk, so I notice where people go. And I think that really informs me of, creating signage and at the particular points, right? Because for me, we've created a signage locator map. So it's a map of understanding where all the different library signs are, because I wrote a book on this. Signage should be strategic and not random, and specifically wayfinding signage, so that when users come to the building, they're not going to get lost. They're going to get from point A to point B, and they're going to be able to like leave the building without getting lost. So very often, those types of observations, which could be very, very long, because when you're observing the entire path or the entire journey that a user is going through, might be super overwhelming. The micro way is for different library staff members and faculty to just observe at the micro level, specific points, specific little segments. So that's one example. And I'm just going to move on to my next. I want to actually show you some of the questionnaires. But are there any examples about micro and mini observations? Okay. If not, I'm going to share just some examples of the micro assessments that I use at my library. And again, they're online through Microsoft Forms. We have a college assistant that kind of inputs the data. The forms are printed out into postcard size little mini questions, and I want to show you because we're doing so many of them, and instead of having one large questionnaire that would take, and then to incentivize it, we used to give like bottled water, pens, little mini staplers, candy, chocolate. I think now, because there's only 3 questions, we don't necessarily have to incentivize it as much anymore, because each questionnaire takes like 30 seconds to complete. So I just want to share the screen, and I hope this is the right one. let me just, okay. Okay, so this is our website, but right. Just to let you know, our website is ACRL hyphen LM. Hold on. Let me just take a look. Oh, there it is. ACRL hyphen LMODG hyphen NYC.org. I'm not wearing my glasses, but I'm able to see that. That's our website. We post like the notes and the presentation materials, and we are a part of ACRL National, not New York, and we're part of the different local meetup groups. So I just want to show you some examples. This is a recent mini questionnaire that we started recently. We do questionnaires constantly. So it's not that we just do them like once or twice a year. We constantly do these questionnaires. So post-pandemic, we had a budget cut where we're not able to be opened on Saturday and Sunday, but we're only open on one day on the weekend. So we asked our community of students and faculty who are in the library over many, many different days, over many different times of the day, morning, afternoon, and the evening. We wanted to ask them, do they prefer to be opened Saturday or Sunday? So, and we had questions with branching. If they chose Saturday, then they would have other options. If they chose Sunday, they'd have other options. So I want to show you the main structure of this questionnaire. We want to ask them, what was their year of study? What is their major? And then it's simple, right? So what is their year of study? What is their major? And do they prefer the library to be open on the weekend on Saturday? And that branches out. If they choose Saturday, I just want to show you, or Sunday. So if they choose Saturday, right? And then it branches out and do they prefer like 10 to 2, 12 to 4, 1, right? So in other words, if they chose Saturday, which time slots do they prefer the library to be opened? Now, again, if they choose Sunday, then it gets branched out to, and again, then my chief librarian asked me to add another question. Again, I don't like having too many questions on, I just think there's too much and it's too much labor. But we wanted to ask them, like, why would they use the library on the weekend? Like, what are some of the reasons? And of course, rank them in order of importance. This is an example of a mini questionnaire. I would call it micro because micro is like one question. But I would call this a mini questionnaire because it's not 25 questions. But I want to just emphasize that collecting this data informed us to be opened on Saturday and not Sunday, right? So, our marketing decisions in our promotions, in the way that we communicate, and the marketing decisions when we promoted weekend hours was informed by market research, by conducting these mini questionnaires and collecting data that would inform us to make the decision to be open on Saturday but not Sunday. So that's just one example. I'm not good at graphic design, so I do very minimal graphic design. I use Canva, but I'm not professional, but I am more comfortable in qualitative and quantitative assessments. I worked on it for many, many years during my doctoral studies. So like I'm really much into both qualitative and quantitative types of assessments. I think that those assessments are very important as they inform how our marketing behavior, our marketing decisions, our marketing activities. So that's just one example of something very recently. And does anybody have any questions about the weekend library hours questionnaire? I'm just going to go in the chat. Oh, thank you, Jessica.
Have you used I know you said you like physical, so you don't email these to students, you only do them paper?
Okay, so I want to answer that. It's not, I just don't, I think that our students don't check their CSI email. They use their personal email. And I think a lot of students don't even they don't fully read their email. They don't like digest it. They don't absorb it. So I could be wrong. I believe that printing it out in postcard, and maybe because I'm old fashioned, it's just like you get the data immediately. It's immediate. It's immediate. I'm not against QR codes. We use QR codes. And we do use a lot of like, we do have online activities and we do have online assessments. But I just think that like if you give somebody the URL to complete an online questionnaire, they may lose it. They may lose it, or they may, in their mind, they may store it somewhere and they may do it much later, or they may not do it at all. So
Right.
it's not that I don't trust, our users, our students, our faculty, but I just think that when we give them something physical in print, and I feel guilty, we don't have the budget to give them snacks or or like pens or notepads or staplers or things like that. We used to give like bottled water. We used to go to Costco and give them like candy and chocolate. We don't do that anymore. I just think that like the immediacy of the data is great because we can we can immediately upload it onto Microsoft Forms, and with Microsoft Forms, it automatically kind of gives you like graphs and charts, and I think that's wonderful Microsoft Forms because it's part of the Office 365 suite. It gives you this visual data, which to me is like, it's not as fun as infographics, but it's still really helpful to give an idea of especially when you're looking at like doing data analysis and you want to look at it visually. And it's really good to like kind of include in your annual report.
Well, and what part of the reason why I was asking was I just experimented the other day for the first time with emailing students a post event survey and inserting the poll questions from Microsoft Form into the email. So they didn't even have to leave the email to open a URL. The questions were in there. And granted, out of 40 attendees, I still only got 6 responses, but they did also like fill out 3 of them filled out the open-ended question. So it's something I was trying. I don't know if anybody else has used Microsoft Forms where you can insert the polls into the questions in the emails and gotten any positive responses on that, but just throwing that out there as another way to do sort of this like micro assessment.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I really, really do. I just worry that a lot of students, at least in my experience, like don't respond to the emails as quickly.
Or even see them.
They delete them. They don't see them. They may like it. Like they may see it and they're not intentionally ignoring it, but it just goes by because their inbox is just flooded with so many emails. I know I also noticed that like a lot of my I teach a credit bearing course, and a lot of my students are emailing me from their personal emails, which they're not really supposed to. And of course, like, I keep on reminding them, like, please email me from your your CSI email. So that's another thing too, is like, it's not getting to the right email, or they're not checking their student email. That's one thing. So after an event, I do give them, like in terms of like the summative assessment, I do give them a paper form and with like small pencils, and they complete it right away. So that's what I like. They complete at the end of the event, they complete it right away. And then like verbally, the formative assessment, I get some insights because I like it in a way because it kind of solicits participation. Like it's not just me, introducing the film, but they're getting credit. So first-year students at my campus get something called Clue Credit, which is specifically co-curricular credit for personal growth, or co-curricular. They get specific credit for attending college events during club hours, and some of those events are library events. So first-year students have to attend these events. So I like that they're participating way, because I want to hear like how they learned about this particular event. So that also informs like, am I doing the correct marketing? That's really, really important. So I mean, I like these questions. We just recently got like some board games donated, and we know that students do play board games. We've had board games at the library for definitely over 10 years. So we have this board games mini questionnaire because we just got a new donation. So this one is pretty new. So we want to look at their status at the college, their level of study, and what their major is. And by the way, these are board games. These are not like, they're not like video games. These are, again, I'm going to just say like old school board games that a lot of us played like in the 1980s or 1990s. So these are not video games. So do you enjoy playing board games? It's very, very simple. We did not ask what board games they suggest because we don't have money. So that's another thing too. We have a donation of specific types of board games that we already have. So our market research is not asking them what board games we want to buy because we don't have money. It's really the market research tool that we're using is more like, do you like board games and would you play them? So this informs us whether we should have more events in our library that relates to board games because we have button making and students love button making. We have coloring books, students love coloring books. We don't know exactly if students at whatever levels love board games. So again, the market research is we want to know why. We want to know if, that's the whole point of market research. We want to learn. And in learning, by using examples of many types of assessments, which can be like 3 questions. And again, like I always prefer open-ended questions for sure. But in this particular example, we just want to know, like, do you like to play board games? That's it. And that would inform us of being able to provide, and we have a lot of board games. A lot of them I've purchased on Amazon and I've purchased out of pocket. And a lot of them we haven't, like, we have them through a donation. But we don't, in this case, we don't want to ask them like, oh, what do you want us to buy? Because unfortunately, we don't have like extra money. We already got these board games as it was like a donation that already, it wasn't a donation of money, it was a donation of board games that were obviously pre-purchased and never used before. So that's one example. And so we have a lot of different types of mini assessments for chat reference and OER. Like most students don't even know that OER exists. This is very revealing. The credit bearing course that I teach uses OER. So when students, after the course ended, so at the end of like week 15, when my course ends, they love the fact that their textbook was OER. They love it. But it's interesting that like most students at like week 1, because I do a week 1 assessment and a week 15 assessment, most students don't even know what OER is. So that is disappointing. But it's interesting. It just means that we need to promote OER more because students are not like they don't really know. So I just want to emphasize that these types of assessments we want to make them as short as possible. And we want to be able, and I like to do assessments, specifically instruction, at like week 1 and week 15. So when the class starts and when the class ends. And so there are different types of we have one for library instruction. We have one for, I think, even for online tutorials. So I'm just giving you some examples, and I just want to, and I have my notes right here that in terms of frequency, the physical mini assessments that we have in the library, we try to do this like on a weekly basis. We give different assessments almost every single day on, and we do it through like, during final exams week, which is now, midterm exams where there's more students. We do it during club hours where students are in the library because there's no classes. So I would say that we're not using snowball sampling, but we're using convenience sampling because we know that there are more students in the library during those times where there's no classes, right?
And how do you pick the students that you give it to? You just hand it to the first person you see? Like,
no,
you get the same regulars?
So it's not random sampling. It is,
okay.
It's whoever, and we have a college assistant doing that. I would say it's throughout the day, right? And club hours are 2:30 to 4:30. So I'm going to just say it's convenient sampling because the reason why it's convenient and it's not random sampling. It's the hours that our college assistant works, right? So she works like every day, but it's like not 9 to 5. Let's say she works like 12 to 5, like Monday through Friday, right? So it's during the hours where she's working. That's number one. It's when she has free time, okay? And it's during the periods where there are possibly like a lot of students on the floors. And I believe she goes on all 3 floors. So she's not limiting it to the first floor, but she's going on all 3 floors. So our first floor, like a lot of libraries, is the reference floor, which is, it's not quiet. Okay. Our second floor has no books. Our second floor is the, collaborative study, which is basically like the most loudest floor. And we do have group study rooms. The third floor is the legitimate silent floor, and I believe she hands it out there too. So the third floor is where our circulating collection is, and it's the kind of like silent floor, which is again more, yeah, like more quiet. But so she hands it out on all three floors, floor 1 and 2 being the super noisy floors. And so she gets this data. And what's really great about Microsoft Forms is I get notified every time she's inputting data. And so we're really, it's really great when we get this data because I can show a glance visually, and I can do a screenshot and I can kind of forward that to my chief librarian, because what's great about Microsoft Forms is there is a way of visually kind of like analyzing the data by looking at it in a more of a summary glance. So
It gives charts, right?
It's like super easy. And, I mean, I have used Excel to do that. But I think what's great about Microsoft Forms is I think it does it for you. It creates charts, and it's like magic. I mean, because Excel is not always the easiest for me to use. I mean, I like to organize the data in Excel, but to visually present the data, I'm not good at that. So yeah. So I just showed you a sample. We have a lot. Like we have over 20 different kinds of mini questionnaires. So I'm showing you kind of a select few of the ones that we use, and we really don't want to have more than 5 questions. I mean, and ideally I think 3. 3 is perfect, right? And I know a lot of libraries have longer questionnaires, and I do see value in that. And I think that those questionnaires can be used for marketing purposes to inform our marketing activities, our marketing decisions. I think that we piece it out into specific like subcategories is, I think, to just make it more scalable, and I think just easier. It's easier to kind of look at, okay, this is only going to be reference, this is only going to be instruction. So are there any questions about the examples that Jessica and myself provided that kind of provide examples of micro and mini assessments used for market research, which you also use for user experience too?
And we can open it up too if you have any situations that you're not sure if micro or mini assessments could be used for. We can open it up to everybody to chat about.
And if anyone wants to share, like maybe if your library is doing some examples of A/B testing, or kind of micro or mini observations, or different types of ethnographic research used for user experience or market research, because I think that they're like cousins. I kind of see them as cousins. I think that user experience is kind of like, kind of connected to conducting overall market research in my view. Yeah, please feel free to share. Okay, I guess it's quiet.
Well,
So
we're doing good on time anyway. We're at
yeah, we are. So I want to mention we meet once a semester. Before the pandemic, we used to meet in person. Post-pandemic, it's just become much more convenient, and we've definitely had like a lot more people when we're attending on Zoom. So we want to thank you for taking the time to attend our fall 2025 virtual meeting on micro and mini assessments for market research purposes. And we look forward to having another meeting with you in the spring. So thank you so very much. And this has been a great opportunity. So thank you very much for taking the time to join. And I'm thrilled. I'm very happy. Thank you for your hearts and claps. My fingers are broken and I'm a lot of pain, but I did not want to cancel. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday if you celebrate, and have a wonderful end to the semester. And thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing. Yours are a lot more visually kind of much more attractive than mine, but I really feel inspired to try some of the things that you've done at your library. So thank you for sharing. And thank you all for attending the meeting. And we will send out a call in the spring semester. Have a wonderful holiday, everybody. Take care and thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you very
Bye.
much, Jessica. Take care. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.